Hey free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. But before we move on to the Apep guide for today, I want to double check something. So one of my viewers who is constantly providing me with a lot of information, he has recently also mentioned that he suspects that Apep actually has a lot more defense than a typical boss. So for example, Chronos over here. So this is something I want to explore a little bit, and as you can see over here, Chronos has 22.5k HP. Obviously this is not true, okay? Obviously this is going to be scaled up like crazy. And he also has 1524 defense as opposed to Apep. Let's take a look at Apep for a minute over here. So Apep has less HP, right? He has about 4000 less HP, but he has more than twice the amount of defense. Now, I'm not sure whether are these just static stats that don't mean anything at all, or are these actually something for us to work on. So in order for us to test this out, we are actually going to make use of a neutral DPS Esper that is going to be Taylor. I'm going to try to use him to punch Chronos and just see how much damage we can do. And we're going to do the same thing for Apep as well, just to see whether are there actual defense differences between the two bosses. Okay, so DPS check number 1. Let's see how much damage his third skill can do, which would give him an attack up and a crit rate up as well. So this will be 29,000. So let's see what he can do to Apep. Okay, so here we go. We're going to use the same skill. This is our third skill. It's going to give us an attack up and a crit rate up as well. Let's see how much it is. 25k. So it's definitely less damage than before, right? So the damage difference is probably about 20%. We are probably dealing about 20% less damage than before, around there. So knowing that this is true, this is something that we can work with. Now we can kind of accept that Apep has actually lesser HP than Chronos, but more defense than Chronos, which means that defense breaks are going to be multiplicatively stronger against Apep. So far so good. My win rate is pretty okay. So I think it's at least 90%. I rarely see this lose, but the thing is my relics are also pretty important over here. So the thing is, if your relics are not good enough, unfortunately, you're probably not going to be able to run this very well. So let's take a look at the team they're running with right here. And this is what I'm going to be using. Now, there are some issues with this team, but there are also some other good points as well. So let me explain a little bit. So I've said this a lot of times, but Gabrielle is not really that good in Apep, and the reason why I feel that way is because she multi-hits on her second skill, which effectively cuts Apep's counter by half, and then that allows him to counter-attack more frequently, which is something that I do not really like. But the thing is, it's very hard for you to find an Esper that not only has defense break, but they also have immunity and defense up at the same time, which I think is very important for your sustainability and your survivability. And also she has a 30% HP lead, which is not usually that good because the damage that Apep does scales according to your own HP because it scales off poison stacks. So I would definitely prefer having a defense lead instead, but the thing is, this still helps a little bit with some of the damage that he's going to deal to you anyway, right? So I'm going to be using Gabrielle here, and I'm also going to be using Hengrye with these stats. And I think it is very important that your Hengrye has Astral Witchcraft, because more often than not, that actually came in very handy for me. So the way Astral Witchcraft works is the moment you use one skill and you pop Astral Witchcraft, your cooldowns actually reduce by 1, which would then sometimes allow you to drop your third skill in some of the cases. But obviously when you complete your second turn, you're not going to get cooldown reduction. So that's where Astral Witchcraft explains itself in terms of prevention of cooldown reduction. So this is quite important because whenever she takes extra turns using Astral Witchcraft, she's going to pop more of these Undying Elixir passives that she has, which would then cleanse one of your teammates, give them a regeneration buff and all that. So it's pretty good sustainability in my opinion. Now obviously her third skill is going to be extremely broken for Apep because it cleanses all debuffs from Apep as well. And I know I've talked about Hengrye before and said that she's actually not that good in Apep because prevention is better than cure. I still stand by it, but the thing is, it is quite hard to find a team right now that is relatively free to play and yet at the same time can get rid of all the debuffs on your team, which I think is quite important for this fight. And the third support is going to be Suhua. Here is my Suhua. I've never touched her stats for a very long time. So she is on Ocean Waves, and I do recommend you to put her on Ocean Waves as well. Now the main reason why I'm bringing her here is, well, number one, obviously she brings attack buff, which is sometimes useful because I have a Drew who does not provide himself with attack buff. But at the same time, she does have a defense buff as well, which is great to stack with your Gabrielle to make sure that you are constantly on some form of defense buff, because that's going to be so important in dealing with the damage that Apep has. And secondly, her second skill is really quite broken. It's really good. Okay, so it heals one of your allies, gives them regeneration, and also grants them invincibility for 1 turn. So it is a really good skill. And of course, finally, she has attack break over here, which is kind of nice. It works in conjunction with Gabrielle, so you have quite a little bit of attack debuffs here and there, right? Now let's talk a little bit about our offensive Espers, right? So the first is going to be Drew. Now the reason why he's so good here is because he defense breaks, right? So number one, he defense breaks on his second skill with a really short cooldown. So you're going to expect defense breaking a little bit more frequently. And then next you have Death Judgment, which is going to be your cleaving skill, which is not only good for the first 2 waves, but also good in dealing damage to the boss on the 3rd wave. So that's basically it. Here are the stats, and then finally we have Freddy over here. So this is going to be the first time I'm showcasing Freddy. Now the thing is, the reason why he's so good is because with the Hades set here and with the hybrid build, right, so attack percentage here, HP percentage here, with the hybrid build, he's actually quite able to sustain himself, which allows your team to focus their heals on any other Espers that need the healing instead of Freddy. And the reason why he's so good is his damage is quite insane. His damage is really quite high here. I have seen him deal like upwards of like 100,000 damage in one go. That's really good. And furthermore, he also single target hits, which is very important to us. So for example, Hengre single targets, Drew single targets, Freddy single targets, Suhua single targets. The only problem here is going to be Gabrielle, but I do feel like her benefits kind of outweigh the cost. Alright, so with the long introduction out of the way, let's take a look at some runs and let's see how it works, right? So it's not an amazing team, okay? So it's not a team that you will like, wow, cleave through the first few waves super easily and like everything just pieces up so well together, like some puzzle that Nyx GX probably crafted by now, right? So it's not gonna be one of those teams that look very spectacular. So it's basically just bruising through the entire fight. Just throwing DPS after DPS after DPS and just doing whatever you can to survive and to deal enough damage. And I think that's quite important right now when I feel like Apep is probably one of the hardest bosses in this entire game right now. So as you can see here, this is entirely by luck, right? It's by luck that I was able to cleave through the second wave. But if I do not cleave through the second wave, it's still fine. It will just take a little bit more time, but that's about it. So most importantly is your ability to beat this, right? So we're going to hope for defense breaks, and we failed one defense break already. So we are hoping that our Gabrielle is going to land a defense break, but with that, that's going to allow him to counter attack, which is not very nice at all. So let's see. I think Gabrielle should have her second skill up on the next turn. Right, so as you can see, we are not dealing a lot of damage right now because of the absence of defense breaks. Okay, but now that the defense break is here, you will see that our DPS changes drastically, right? And our survivability is still okay, so there you go, the invincibility buff is going to be huge. It's going to be really huge for just sustaining us a little bit. And here we go, big DPS, 67k, just like that, right? And here comes the defense break and immunity again, which is really good. So just having all these buffs stacking on top of each other is going to improve your survivability by a lot. And so when Freddy uses his normal attack, unfortunately it's not going to be that big of a deal. But when he goes into his third skill, that's going to be a massive DPS, massive DPS change over there. So hopefully you get to see it over here, alongside the defense break that the boss has, right? 3 of the hunt, 71,000. Is this his third skill? I'm actually not very sure. I'm actually not very sure that that is his third skill, which scales off the lower his HP is. But yeah, so there you go, this is the team. We can probably take a look at this again because it's relatively fast, 1 minute 59 seconds. So as you can see, I have one team that is like 1 minute, but that is the more pay to win team. So I'm really liking this team just because of how stable it is. I don't really care too much about the runtime right now because I'm still trying to figure out how to make sure that my runs are stable. So most importantly, in terms of climbing all this PvE content, your stability needs to come first. Only when your stability is there can you try to improve on your speed, improve on your runtimes and all that. But that's because your relics become a little bit better or your speed tuning becomes perfected or something like that. But in terms of Apep, I do feel like he's such a technical boss in a sense that you need to be very careful of every single follower over here as well. So the follower on the left, he can stun you, and the follower on the right is going to strip all your buffs and convert it into poisons, which is really nasty. So this entire fight is actually very difficult. But one way that you can sort of minimize the effects of the follower on the right is to probably run AP reduction or make your team extremely fast. So you can run a speed lead, for example, so that you can lap the right tower a little bit more frequently, and that might actually improve things a little bit for you. But all in all, this team still works. Generally not super fast. It's decently speedy, but the quality of the relics are there. So if I do not have the speed, I will have it in other stats. Like for example, I'll have it in accuracy, I'll have it in, I don't know, HP, defense, that kind of stuff. And as for my DPS, they are all generally quite speedy as well. They have like at least 40 to 50 speed, something like that. And all of their relics are obviously going to be at a certain level that most of you guys may not be able to reach at this point of time. But the thing is, I'm not trying to tell you how to do Apep 16, even though that's the title of this video. I'm just giving you an idea of how you can partake in Apep and try to beat whatever that you can beat, the most difficult Apep level that you can beat, with a really good consistent team, and I think this is going to work out really well for you. So I hope this helped you in some way. I hope after watching this video, you can suddenly, you know, beat like at least Apep 14, 15, or maybe even 16. If you can do that, really kudos to you. Good job over there. But I guess that's it for the showcase, and like I said, there's just a few pointers to take away. So Apep has a lot of defense, so defense breaks are going to be super important here in order for you to beat the boss faster and all that good stuff, right? And secondly, it's just to make sure that you survive and have a team that is sustainable and have a team that works before trying to go for something that, you know, makes things a lot faster and a lot easier for you. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, it really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now that said, this has been Daddy Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video. You know what? I'll just let you guys watch the rest of this.